What did you say to Errol up there?
Nothing. We about to make history.
What did you say to Terence up there?
I said he need to thank me for making this shit happen.
You made it happen.
Of course I made it happen. It ain't Crawford Spence. It's Spence Crawford.
Wow, Terence has finally arrived. Like, this is the moment that he's been talking about for, what, 5-6 years? And then Errol's energy, and then the crowd was incredible. You know it's a big event when?
When Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr., Evander Holyfield, Stephen A's in the house.
I'm not just coming to just any fight. I'm not saying it's going to be an all-out slugfest, but it's going to be a fight. Make no mistake about it. Those guys are in tremendous physical condition. What a moment!
This needed to happen now. This needed to happen in front of all these people. The two best guys in boxing are actually going to come together and unify those belts.
They are both in their prime with 50-50 fight.
Errol Spence methodically breaks you down. Terence Crawford comes to take you out.
There's just something about a big boxing match, especially in Las Vegas.
The better man gonna win tomorrow.
Do you think this is a more pro-Crawford crowd or pro-Spence crowd?
You let them decide.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Showtime Boxing Countdown Show. We are live from the T-Mobile Arena here in Las Vegas, where tonight Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford will meet in a historic fight for the undisputed welterweight championship. I am Kate Abdo. It's good to have you with us today, joined by Morning Combat host on the end, Luke Thomas, host of the MMA Hour in the middle, Ariel Helwani. Good to see you both. Excited to be here with you tonight. We are going to take you through the prelims right up until the main card starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, which is 5 p.m. here local in Las Vegas. It is only available to you, of course, on Showtime pay-per-view. You can order now at showtime.com/PPV. Let's talk about what we saw yesterday, because we covered the weigh-in, and I think I felt really excited, like watching it back, looking at the exchange that Terence and Errol had on stage, where they kind of dapped each other up and had a moment where they just appreciated how big this moment is. They didn't need all the trash talk. They didn't need to be insulting. They just knew this is huge, and we made this happen.
No doubt about it. Historic, as Ariel was saying yesterday. And, like, listen, Bud Crawford, I don't know that I've ever seen him on a stage like this. And I was at the Errol Spence versus Ugas fight, and that was big. There was like 50,000 people at Jerry's World down there in Arlington, Texas. But that was more like a homecoming. This is the house that these two men built here today. It's a testimony to the work they put in, both as boxers and as promoters here this week. And I am so excited to see what happens in the main event.
Yeah, I want to echo what I said at the top of yesterday's show. I am buzzing right now. I can't believe that we are here. I can't believe it's fight night. It's Spence, Crawford, Spence. Who cares whose name goes first? We'll find out who walks out second later. But that scene yesterday was one of the best that I've ever witnessed as far as a weigh-in is concerned. And you are right, Kate. It was respectful. It was nice. But let's not forget the fact that Errol Spence said, Terence, you better thank me. I made this happen for you. And so there was still some gamesmanship there. There was still some, you know, some alpha stuff going on. But in the end, it was tremendous. And Vegas is on fire right now. Very excited.
We'll find out later who ends up walking out last. I feel like we all know what Terence is going to choose, don't we? If you're Terence and you get the choice because you won that towing cost, don't you choose to walk second?
Yeah, but then you get introduced first, so it kind of depends on what you want on that score as well.
Okay, so I was debating this earlier. What would you rather? First name on the poster or walk out second?
Walk out second.
Walk out second.
You see, I think first name on the poster, that's for life. This will forever be Spence Crawford. No one will remember who walked out first or second, right?
To each his own. What I would say.
Chew on, Kate. These are the big issues going into fight night.
Yes, they sure are. Thanks for bringing them to our attention. We've got the first night of the prelims, which is coming up for you. Let me find the names of the two fighters that we got in this one. It's the young Mexican prospect José Salas Reyes and the Filipino veteran Aston Palicte. Ariel and Luke are going to take you through that first fight.
Looking forward to this one. Super bantamweight fight. Ariel Reyes, an absolute dynamo. José Salas Reyes is just I wouldn't call him a traditional Mexican boxer. That wouldn't be fair. He can box from the outside. In fact, in his last contest, he really showed some great outside work. Combination puncher. Busy. And then the other part about the story here, Ariel, I'm sure you know this as well, Palicte coming in off a devastating knockout loss. Just at the Haney-Kambosos rematch at the beginning of June against a young gun, 21 years old. Obviously, they had to clear all medical guidelines, or they had to obey all medical guidelines to be here. Nevertheless, bit of a risky proposition to come back so soon.
And yesterday, Aston told us that after that fight, he was kind of considering retirement. And they gave him this opportunity. And even talking to him yesterday, I feel like he's not quite sure if he wants to continue fighting, right? It's almost like he's half in, half out. And you know this, you know, when fighters are half in, half out, that usually spells trouble. So I'm curious to see how he looks in this fight.
We shall see. Palicte, currently 32 years old, 33 years old, depending on your records. 21 for José Salas. Undefeated Salas at 12-0. Palicte sitting at 28-5-1. Salas representing Mexico, Tijuana, and out of the Philippines at Bago City is Palicte.
His nickname, in case you're wondering, means little grasshopper.
El Chapulín.
Yes. Did you know that?
I did.
Okay. I'm telling someone who actually speaks fluent Spanish.
I don't. I speak Rosetta Stone Spanish. It's okay. But there's a famous cartoon or even a character in Latin American TV called El Chapulín Colorado.
Okay.
And so I only knew it because of that.
I would have believed you if you told me you just knew it.
All right, here we go. As you can tell, in the black trunks with the green and red trim with the Mexican flag, of course, is going to be Reyes, which means kings in Spanish, and then Palicte in the white. And by the way, here obviously you have southpaw versus orthodox. Nice uppercut from Palicte. He loves that uppercut, catching guys coming in. The problem is that's actually how Maloney finished him off in the last fight. But as you can see, southpaw orthodox, which means there could be an inadvertent clash of heads. That can happen. Also, the lead foot positioning is going to matter. You can be in or out, but they change the equation depending on where you are.
This is a big deal for Reyes. His first ever fight in Las Vegas, just his second fight in America. Fighter's dream, he called it.
Palicte with the neck tattoos, Ariel. You got any neck tattoos?
No tattoos yet. You're the tattoo guy.
I am. I haven't gotten the neck done yet, but it's on the radar.
How many total?
God, what am I up to now? 9 tattoos?
Wow. Any you regret?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've got some hideous Juggalo-esque tattoos. Are you kidding me?
You have insane Clown Posse tattoos?
No.
Okay.
I certainly am no better than that. Anybody, here's the reality. Here's the reality. Anybody that has good tattoos has had bad tattoos.
Interesting.
Yeah. It takes a while to figure out what's good.
You can't bat 1,000 with the tattoos.
Unless you're just really, really good and really lucky. But I certainly didn't, no. And as you can see here, Reyes, real active with the jab. Still feeling him out a little bit. As you can see, sometimes he's touching the glove. And then there he was again. He came over the top and then changed angles. Reyes, real good at that. It's a big part of his game. Likes to make guys turn and move. And he catches them in the in-between spaces.
Shout out to Mauro Ranallo. You heard him there?
I did. How can you miss it, right?
You missed that voice from all the way up here.
By the way,
amazing.
Let's just sing Mauro Ranallo's praises here for a second. I know it's very easy for you to do and for me as well. Called boxing at the highest level, called MMA at the highest level, called kickboxing at the highest level, called pro wrestling at the highest level. Someone tell me who's got a better resume than Mauro Ranallo, because I've just not seen it in combat sports.
The greatest combat sports broadcaster in the history of the business.
Not even, to me, it's not even debatable.
And most versatile. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
And his longevity.
Yeah.
This guy's been calling, again, combat sports since I was watching on my couch.
Yeah. Early days, Calgary, Stampede, wrestling, early 80s. That's how he got his start. Legend.
We started the round with Palicte kind of doing the leading, and as you can see, we're ending with Reyes much more on top of him. Round one in the books. Guys feeling each other out, Ariel. Not a whole lot going on there. It looked to me like clear speed advantage for the younger 21-year-old Reyes.
As expected. By the way, last time we did this, I said I wanted open scoring for the prelims. Are we getting that?
No, I did not know that. They did not tell me that. We shall see.
How do you feel about open scoring? Wouldn't it be fun for some of these prelim fights to just like use it, test it out?
So here's the thing. In boxing, one of the times that they used it in a limited but unique way was the Canelo-Austin Trout fight.
The WBC thing, right?
Yeah, it was a Canelo-Austin Trout fight, and they revealed the scores to be wider than they should have been, and it kind of deflated everything because then you knew which way this was all kind of headed, and then Canelo took over late anyway. So in boxing, people don't have quite the same, to my knowledge, they don't have quite the same appetite for it as they do in other combat sports. I don't mind it. I'm not convinced by it.
Okay, fair enough. I did think it was interesting that they had the official weigh-ins in the morning, but they didn't disseminate those results.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
We've seen morning weigh-ins and then afternoon ceremonial weigh-ins.
But the morning weigh-ins are open to the public.
That's right, or at bare minimum to the media, yeah.
Media.
Here's Reyes. So you can see him jabbing the glove, testing reactions, trying to see what he's going to get, see which angle he needs to move, what shot to set up. And again, this is my point. He is pressuring, but still kind of fighting on the outside here a little bit. Good right hook overall in the arsenal of Reyes.
Even Palicte's shorts, his trunks, would suggest that this was a very short notice, last-minute decision.
The only thing missing is the tag on him.
Yeah.
You could see Palicte trying to land that overhand right, and Reyes blocking with one arm, which is always a real, it's a dicey proposition in boxing because it works most of the time, but it doesn't need a wide margin for error for that to land in a way that could be a problem for competitors. It's obviously easier to get one hand up than two, and you see most guys do just one, but it's always, I always see that and I'm always like, rolling the dice with that. And not a lot of action so far. Reyes doing really well. Just not a lot of return fire here from Palicte.
Ooh. Big swing and a miss.
Yeah, and his trail leg came with him. He kind of switched stances. You do that again, Reyes might make him pay.
Palicte has trained with Manny Pacquiao before, says he doesn't train with him anymore. He's even trained at Wild Card, but doesn't train there anymore as well.
Yeah, and he's using what I would call an economy of offense, right? Like he's trying to land what's there, but it looks like, you know, what kind of camp did he have? It's hard to say, right?
Yeah, I was really confused by his demeanor when we spoke to him yesterday.
In terms of his future?
In terms of his future, his interest. Yeah, like he said he's not even sure if he's going to keep fighting after this. If something comes his way, he seemed very non-committal to boxing, and that's always very dangerous when you're going into a fight against a young gun like this.
Yes. Especially a guy, to your point, a guy like Reyes. Constantly working, constantly moving, turning, pushing. 2 rounds in the books, it looks like, for me, here's some of the replays, and you can see a great shot, missed with the left hand, pushed him over, which set up a lane for the right hand. That's good work. He stepped to the inside to draw him out. Got it. Nice work there again on the combination. Doesn't look to me like Reyes is either has a lot of pop or is using a lot of power, but he's certainly landing, Ariel.
Yeah, that's at 2018 Reyes.
What do you mean?
In terms of the scorecard.
Oh, yes.
What did you think I meant?
I had no idea. I was like, is this some throwback Reyes? I don't know.
I mean, did you score it?
Yes, I would give the first 2 rounds. Again, just based off of activity.
Yeah.
Also, personal issue for me, and everyone's mileage is going to vary on this. I really, in the year 2023, have a hard time understanding when referees don't wear the gloves, the latex gloves.
Oh.
I always prefer it when they do. When they go barehanded, I'm always like...
Who's going barehanded these
they
days?
owe a lot of them.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. It drives me nuts.
You don't see a lot of the blue gloves. Sometimes I see the black gloves. What made you just think of that, by the way?
Because so many in boxing don't do it.
That is gross.
Yeah, it's super gross. Glad that's not the case here. Round 3, and you can see right already, Reyes trying to put Palicte on the back foot. Palicte trying to counter, got through with a bit of a swivel jab over the top, but Reyes appears undeterred.
Oh,
good left hand through the middle of that combination there from Reyes. You could see there Palicte putting the gloves together, trying to cheer him on. I'll say this, Polite's doing a decent job not biting on too many of the feints, just kind of have a high guard, and he's waiting to see something and then go. But it seems to me now Reyes has his back up against the ropes. This might turn bad here real quickly.
Anytime a fighter who's taking damage eggs the other fighter on, you know he's actually hurt. I don't know why that is, but it always seems to be the case. He continues to do it to a degree. He's not throwing anything in return.
You see Reyes trying to find an entry for that angle change on the outside. There he is again. You can see him trying to test it, but that left hand doesn't quite get through, but that one does.
He hasn't thrown a punch, I think, all round.
He got one left hook in there, but even if you get that left hook, Reyes is pretty sturdy, and he's landing 3 or 4 for every one he's going through.
You think he's trying to bait him?
I don't. His only hope is to counterfight, right?
Yeah.
So yes, and you can see him kind of leaning off at an angle like that to get away. Good left hand, resets to the center. Salas undefeated. The only decision on his record was the last one. And all of his previous fights, none went longer than the 4th round. So we'll see here in round 3 how much longer this one goes. But this is a highly experienced opponent. As I mentioned, 28-5 for the Filipino. Excuse me, 28-5-1. One of the better combos that Reyes has is that stick with the left hand to the body, then upstairs with the right. Would love to see him get a little bit more back to that. That's one thing he does really well. Good timing on it, good placement, good shot selection in general. 3 rounds in the books. I'm going to say, Ariel, so far it's a clean sweep.
Yeah, 30-27. Should we go to our ringside score, Kate Abdo? Kate, how are you scoring this?
Yeah, same as you guys.
Okay, guys, 30-27.
A little Letterman there. Here we go. As you can see, trying to find that outside angle, goes to the body, and then comes upstairs with that swivel jab. That's good work from Reyes. Palicte, just kind of parrying a little bit, kind of moving out of the way. Reyes not really making him stay there as hard as he could, but I'm imagining, Ariel, we might turn the intensity up here in the 4th and middle portions of the fight.
I think. I mean, that whole round was pretty much contested in that top left corner there. Palicte doing very little.
Well, you can say he's relaxed.
He is relaxed. He's smiling, but I don't buy any of it.
Yeah, but you don't quite get the same competitive fire, it seems like, from Reyes. Or I should say as Reyes.
Right.
Pay attention here, folks. You can see that the head and the feet and the hands, those in one way or the other should always be in motion, 2 at the same time, right? You always want 2 of those 3. Look at Reyes. You always see that. He's either got the hands on the feet, head in the hands, whatever. Always got 2 of those in motion. Couple good lefts there from Reyes.
What I like about Reyes is he doesn't just throw 1 shot or 2.
Right.
It's usually a combo, and he's coming at him aggressively. Hey, Moro. How are you?
This is good combination work here from Reyes, some of the best of the fight. And this is better, keeping Palicte pinned, and he's down! Palicte goes down in the 4th round. The referee's going to give him a count.
Palicte wants out. Palicte wants out.
You can, to your point, Ariel, to your point, bad habit there, but you can hear the
Palicte
corner.
Wants out?
Yes, well, you can hear the corner. Yes, exactly.
Yes. He wanted nothing to do with this.
And that is it. Palicte calls it a day. You can actually hear the corner of Reyes say in Spanish, he doesn't want it, he doesn't want it. Sure enough, that is it. Reyes stays undefeated, gets back to a stoppage win. And Aston Palicte, now 2 losses in a row. Some questions about where he goes from here.
Luke, we talked about his heart going into the fight. I never saw the heart on display at one point in this fight. I think he wanted out in the second round when he was doing all the egging on, in the third round as well when he was in the corner. And you could see he was motioning to his corner to essentially call it off.
Yeah.
They weren't doing so, and then he had to tell the referee, which is always a bit of an embarrassing moment for a fighter.
Well, I'll tell you what, here's where I come down on this. My personal view is, as we take a look at the replay here, this was good work. He had him pinned, forcing him to his power side, right? There you can see it stepping off, hooking him, pushing him into the corner. Good combination work, going to the body and the head.
He was done right here.
Yeah, exactly. But my view on that is this. You always want the athlete to give maximum effort. However, if they are in a mindset where they don't want to do that, it is better to call it a day. He did not take further abuse. I'm more than okay with this stoppage.
I'm telling you, yesterday I had major questions and concerns about his motivation, about his heart. Right here, he's done. And I think he was trying to subtly tell his corner right here that he wanted out, and for whatever reason, they weren't really paying attention. Referee continued to count him, but he was done. He was absolutely done. A very impressive performance by the young Reyes.
Super. Reyes is just a hard worker, as you indicated, a dynamic combination puncher. And honestly, I'm not sure if Palicte didn't just take a knee. I'm not sure he got forced down.
Interesting.
As much as he just said, I'm going to, what they call in boxing, I don't like the name of it, but they call it the Cotto knee, the knee that Cotto took against Margarito. But of course, that's a bit of a broader, more controversial topic. Nevertheless, fantastic performance from José Salas Reyes, El Chapulín, out of Mexico. Great work for the young 21-year-old undefeated fighter.
Ladies and gentlemen, the end comes at 1 minute and 30 seconds of round number 4 for your winner by TKO, José Salas El Chapulín Reyes.
All right, let's go now to a bit of a piece we have on the history of unifications, of being undisputed, and what that all means. Let's take a look.
It is indisputable that in today's world, almost everything, every opinion, every belief, sometimes even every fact, is, well, disputed. In boxing, it has sometimes seemed there are more champions per division than contenders. With 4 widely recognized and often self-serving sanctioning organizations, each with its own rankings, constituents, and agendas, that should surprise no one. What we hope for, what we strive for, is the emergence of one legitimate, fully deserving, and universally acknowledged champion per weight class. The word for such a champion is undisputed. On July 29 on Showtime pay-per-view, 2 undefeated 147-pound champions, 2 fighters who are among the very best in the world regardless of weight class, will engage in a long-awaited battle that will define their careers and reshape the current boxing landscape. History will be made when it's Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford for the World Welterweight title, the undisputed World Welterweight title. The concept of one belt, one champion summons memories of iconic title holders from days long gone, like Jack Dempsey, Joe Louis, and Sugar Ray Robinson. Today, with 4 belts to try for, it is easier, of course, to win a single world championship. But collecting all 4 belts and becoming undisputed, that remains a relatively rare achievement. The first male fighter to simultaneously hold all 4 of the championship belts was the legendary middleweight champion Bernard Hopkins. B-Hop did that in 2004. In total, there have been 9 such 4-belt fighters, including 5 who have accomplished the feat over the past 2 years. 3 of those 5, Canelo Alvarez, Jermell Charlo, and Devin Haney, reign as current undisputed champions. The winner of Spence Crawford will become the first undisputed welterweight champion of the 4-belt era. And should Crawford emerge victorious, he'll become the first male fighter to have been crowned an undisputed 4-belt champion in 2 different weight classes. So exactly how have champions and pound-for-pounders Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford arrived at this point? For starters, there's the matter of weight. As the #1 ranked amateur in the USA, Spence was a welterweight when he won 3 consecutive national titles in 2009, 2010, and 2011. He was a welterweight when he fought in the 2012 Olympics. He was a welterweight when he turned pro on SHOWTIME in November 2012. He was a welterweight when he first became a world champion in 2017. And today, well, he's still a welterweight. Spence's success as a professional has come as no surprise to those who knew him best, his teammates on the 2012 U.S. Olympic boxing team. When asked to identify the Olympian who was most likely to make it big as a pro, to a man they all answered, Errol Spence Jr. A southpaw from Dallas, Texas, Spence stoically and steadily rose through the welterweight ranks. In 2017 came his most severe test, a challenge of IBF champion Kell Brook in Brook's hometown of Sheffield, England. It was a close and competitive fight, but Spence's tenacity and relentless body punching ultimately proved the difference. He stopped Brook in round 11. Errol Spence Jr. was 27 years old. He was unbeaten at 22-0, and he was a world champion.
You the most feared man at 147?
I don't know. That's for the fans, for you to decide.
Spence has since fought and won 6 times against the highest level of opposition, including Mikey Garcia, who was 39-0, former champion Sean Porter, and in unification fights, Danny Garcia and your Dennis Ugas. For years now, Spence has been ranked in the top 5 pound for pound, as has been Crawford.
I'm confident I'm going to win this fight just because I feel like I'm the better fighter. You know, I got all the tools to beat him. You know, he's definitely a good fighter, but I feel like I'm better than him. I feel like I'm the better fighter out of us two.
Terence Crawford, 35, is 3 years older than Spence. After a highly successful amateur career, the native of Omaha, Nebraska, turned pro in 2008, 4 years before Spence did so. Crawford started as a lightweight, and in 2014, he won his first world title, defeating Scotland's Ricky Burns in Glasgow, something Crawford and Spence have in common. They both won their first world titles on the road and in the UK. Terence Crawford was 26 years old. He was unbeaten at 23-0, and he was a world champion. The highlight of Crawford's reign at 135 was his stoppage of the previously unbeaten Yuriorkis Gamboa. Shortly after, Crawford vacated to move up in weight, and in his first fight at 140 pounds, he won the vacant WBO title by halting Tomas Delorme. At super lightweight, Crawford was dominant. He made 6 successful defenses, and in 2017, he became the first undisputed 4-belt male champion in 12 years when he crushed Julius Ndongo. Another rise in weight, another title. In 2018, Crawford, a southpaw who switches stances, jumped up to welterweight and beat Jeff Horn to win the WBO title. As he successfully defended against top-shelf opponents like Amir Khan and Sean Porter, the pressure built for the ultimate showdown, the unification versus 3-belt champion Errol Spence Jr.
I'm very happy and excited that me and Errol came together and made this mega fight, but I'm not satisfied. I'm not satisfied. I'm not happy yet. I'm happy that the fight is here, but I'm not satisfied until my hand is raised July 29th.
Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford is a super fight on several levels. First, both welterweights are universally ranked in the pound-for-pound top 5. At risk is not only their hard-earned pound-for-pound status, but also their perfect records, as well as their long-established reigns as 147-pound champions. Spence, 28-0, has been a welterweight titleist for the past 6 years. Crawford, 39-0, for the past 5. The winner will be acknowledged as the best fighter in a division that's arguably been boxing's best for the past several years. And there's that little matter of becoming an undisputed 4-belt champion. Over the past 19 years, only 9 male fighters have accomplished that feat. To place themselves in a position to vie for an undisputed title, fighters must overcome potential roadblocks that can include differences in network affiliations, promotional alliances, financial demands, and the sometimes arbitrary rulings of the 4 sanctioning bodies. Boxing's world titles have been split for the past 60 years or so. When we get a chance to point to a single champion as the one and only, there's reason to celebrate. July 29 on Showtime pay-per-view, boxing will give us a night to remember. Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford. Both special champions willing to risk everything. But only one will emerge undisputed.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the T-Mobile Arena here in Las Vegas. Kate, Ariel, and Luke here with you for this. We have a second prelim fight that is coming up later on, but we also, of course, have just the stat card that we're building up to on the pay-per-view as well, with the main event, of course, being I keep doing that. Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. My bad. Apologies. So let me just run you through what the fights are that we have on the card. It's a stacked undercard. We're going to start the night with the undefeated Cuban prospect, Yoenis Tellez, against the Spanish contender, Sergio Garcia. 10 rounds at super welterweight for that one. Then the legend, Nonito Donaire, is going to be back in the ring looking for another run as champion. He fights Alexandro Santiago for the vacant WBC bantamweight title. So title fight, that one. The co-main is an interesting one. It's Mexican fan favorite Isaac Cruz against unbeaten Giovanni Cabrera in a WBA lightweight title eliminator. And then for all the belts, all the glory at 147, it is Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford. Let's talk about some of those earlier fights, and starting with the first one that we're going to see on the main card, which is Yoenis Tellez against Sergio Garcia, I should perhaps say.
Yeah.
For Garcia, obviously, I think this is a fight that gives him an opportunity to kind of prove, I deserve these big opportunities again. He's had a couple of bigger opportunities, proved that he can mix it up with the elite, but hasn't yet been able to get a win. And for Tellez, this is a fight that will open more doors for him at the weight. Is that what you think, Luke?
That's exactly right. I mean, Garcia is a guy who had a couple of tastes against, as you mentioned, more elite seasoned opposition. Came up a little bit short.
Tony Harrison, Sebastian Fundora.
That's exactly right. You know, 2 guys who were, by the way, world champions. I mean, these are not scrubs that he lost to, but at the same time, it did show he was perhaps at that time a bit of a level below. He's trying to reclaim an opportunity at that space again. Now, will Tellez give that to him? He's got significantly less pro experience, obviously, but it'll be interesting to see, given the vast amount of difference that there is. Garcia has over 30 wins, and Tellez has just 5, I think, total pro boxing fights. That gap will be interesting to see. That athleticism difference will be interesting to see. I'm curious to see how that one goes.
I love this movement with the young Cuban fighters, where they're, sub 10 fights. We saw with David Morrell in April, a Tank Garcia fight, and they're fighting these veterans. Like, they are not taking tune-up fights, they're not taking cupcake fights, and Tellez is doing the same here. And, it hasn't really been talked about enough, in my opinion, going into this card, because the main event is so big and historic and interesting. This is a really solid pay-per-view main card. Like, every fight, all 4 fights, to me, have something interesting to chew on. You get a legend, a future Hall of Famer like Nonito Donaire. I'm not trying to move too fast here, but like everything from the Tellez fight to the Donaire fight to seeing Isaac Cruz, who's chomping at the bit trying to get that Tank Davis rematch. Like, there's something interesting building every step of the way. And let's be honest, historically on big nights like this, we haven't had main cards like this, and so I'm very pleased with what they put together.
You mentioned Nonito Donaire. I saw your reaction when I mentioned the Nonito Donaire fight.
I mean, come on. A guy, Nonito Donaire, how many things can we say? One of the greatest Filipino fighters I've ever had the honor to cover in working in this space. Gave Naoya Inoue everything he could handle and then some in their first contest. Obviously, Inoue got the better of it because Inoue is special. But, to be in a weight class this low at age 40 and still knuckling these juniors into the dirt, how can you not have anything but respect for this guy? And he, to get back there to where he was in between the losses to Inoue, he beat some like legitimate guys along the way. And so I just feel like if you're 40, listen, it's always, when you go into a night like this, hey, may the best man or woman win. You just want the process to be fair, the judges to be good, the referee to be good. But I will be honest with you, I think a lot of boxing fans, certainly in the Philippines, but even here stateside, they have a soft spot for Nonito Donaire. He is, to me, very much in this fight. I expect him to win, in fact, and just noodle that. A 40-year-old champion at a weight class this low. He is such a special talent.
Yeah, guys, if he wins tonight, he would be the oldest active champion in boxing right now.
Amazing.
And one of my favorite moments from yesterday's weigh-in, other than all the Spence Crawford stuff, was when I said to him, Nonito, if you win this bantamweight title on Saturday, you will become the oldest bantamweight champion of all time. And he said, beating my record, which is true. When he was 38, he won it, and if he wins tonight, he'll be the oldest bantamweight champion of all time, beating his own record. I mean, it's unbelievable. And how about that first fight against Naoya Inoue, which it feels like back then, like it didn't get the attention and love that it deserved because people didn't really appreciate
Fight of the year candidate.
Yeah, the monster was. But now I feel like it has aged so well because he really gave Inoue his toughest fight to date, right?
He broke his face.
Yeah.
I mean, he broke Inoue's face, right? I mean, that's no joke. Now, that also tells you what an absolute animal that a guy like Inoue is, that he came back and won that fight late. But I'm just pointing out, like, dude, this guy, he is such a, it's so easy to appreciate his effort. It's so easy to appreciate how he carries himself as a professional, and it's very easy to appreciate what he has done inside the ring. I'm so excited to see what he can do tonight.
You talked about when sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just wanted to add that Santiago has called him one of his idols, and sometimes we have seen when someone looks up to a fighter and they end up fighting him, they don't have that killer instinct. So I'm curious to see how Santiago fights a legend like Nonito Donaire because he looks up to him.
Well, you talked about one of your favorite moments at the weigh-in with him. One of my favorite moments with him came at the press conference when he started to do the face-off with Santiago, and he went back and he took his glasses off, and he was like, no, I really want to be able to look at you. I thought that was very cool. It also really interested me at the press conference that we heard him say, I don't want to just become a world champion again. I want to become undisputed. Even just thinking about the length of time that would take at 40 years old to be able to collect those belts, you'd have to fight at least another, what? How many fights? Year? Couple of years? Maybe?
Yeah, at least.
I mean, to say that, I thought was astounding to me.
Well, I'm a little more skeptical of that claim. I mean, I think there's a very good chance he wins tonight. To become undisputed, at his age would be something truly historic, and also just difficult to come by about whether or not the promotional and
whether you can make those fights happen.
Whether you can even make them happen and especially in a timely manner. Nevertheless, though, to do what he's doing here tonight against an opponent like this, where I do think he is quality. Nonito Donaire, what a remarkable career. Tonight's another chapter.
What about the size kind of issue in this fight as well? Because Santiago, even for somebody fighting at this weight class, is very small in frame and in size. Do you think that size will play a role in the way this fight plays out?
I don't know exactly. We saw him live at the Paul Silva card, if memory serves. And he still is pretty physical for the weight class. At least I would say physical enough. Donaire on the scales yesterday, it was kind of funny, don't get me wrong, he looks to be in shape, but I don't know, he looks like he's in shape and 40, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have...
Wow.
Like, come on now.
Shots fired.
Hey, I've turned 44 in about a week. Trust me when I can say there's a drop-off after 40, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't always been a Dodge Omni, Kate Abdo. I just turned into one. But if I'm being serious, I think this will be more of a... There could be clashes on the inside where it gets rough and physical. I just don't believe that's going to be why Donaire wins or loses, right? I don't think that's going to be the defining feature. But if Donaire wants,
I mean, he's 5'2", right, Santiago? If Donaire wants, he could just keep him on the outside of the jab all night long.
And I expect him to, yes.
All right, so what else have we got? Let's talk about one of the other fights that we're looking at. This
is the one, I mean...
I love this
Isaac Cruz one?
Let me just say this, if I may. Isaac Cruz...
Love him.
You better like Isaac Cruz.
Yes.
First of all, because he's terrifying, even though he's a little man. But more than that, what a style this guy has. I mean, when I tell you he is a march you down, bang on the door, here comes the SWAT team, that is Isaac Cruz. And I thought, yes, he lost to Tank Davis, but his power, you could see Tank Davis's eyes light up when he got hit. He knew he was dealing with a serious operator. He's hard to put away. I got to tell you, man, that guy, when he is moving down, look at these highlights. When he's moving downhill on you, he is an absolute hammer in that ring.
Well, it's interesting because we talked about Donaire giving Inoue one of his toughest fights, if not toughest, and I would argue that Isaac Cruz gave Tank Davis back in LA in 2021 his toughest fight as well, and that was a short notice fight, if you recall.
Yep.
He has been saying he is not shy about the fact that he wants this fight again. I would be shocked if Tank Davis took this fight again anytime soon. There's no upside for him, and he knows just how tough Pitbull is. Like, there's no reason to do this. But Isaac Cruz, everyone loves him, to your point, Luke. He's your favorite fighter's favorite fighter, as people like to say. But I love Cabrera, too. Cabrera's got some swag. He looks like a male model, undefeated, has been talking a big game as well. Back and forth they win.
Has he been talking too much of a big game?
No, forget that.
Considering who you're going in against?
I mean, here's the thing. You look at his game, and you just have to say, all right, because there's Tank Davis. You saw him. He was able to pivot, turn, keep turning Pitbull so that that was his way of absorbing the pressure. And, of course, Tank has an absolutely nuclear left hand, right? So we know that. What does Cabrera have to keep Isaac Cruz off of him? I am not sure what the answer to that is. I'm not sure that there is one, and I worry about that for him tonight.
I mean, you said you have to like Pitbull Cruz, right? Which I agree with you, by the way, but I think it's funny because he doesn't really give you much to like. But it's that, for me, which makes him so interesting. The press conference, he shuts it all down. He doesn't enter into any of that trash talking. He's all business all the time. And he's just mean. And I like
Super
that.
mean. And these guys who come from, and you see it a lot in boxing, obviously, but these guys who come from real, let's say, humble backgrounds, like real working class backgrounds, guys who don't mind getting their hands dirty, who don't mind doing the extra work that others don't do. That's Isaac Cruz to the nth degree. And so for that reason, because of the effort that he gives, because of the heart that he shows, and because of the genuine skill that he's now developed, he absolutely has my respect. He has my admiration. I cannot wait to see him tonight.
I agree with you. He doesn't give you a lot in terms of the interviews, although this week he's been pretty good. But he gives you a lot in terms of his style, right? He is just so fun to watch. And
in the ring, you're talking about. Yes, absolutely.
In the ring, yeah. And I will admit, I asked Cabrera on the stage yesterday, like, do you think he is looking past you because he keeps talking about Pitbull? He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who would look past anyone. Like, he strikes me as the kind of guy who loves a good scrap. He's a true Mexican fighter, right, Isaac Cruz? And so he is not going to go in there and be like, oh, I'm going to take this lightly so I can get the Tank Davis fight. Cabrera is undefeated. He continues to say that he has beaten more undefeated fighters than anyone in boxing. I don't know how you come up with that stat, but it's a nice little thing to say.
If it's true.
If it's true. Well, why not? Just run with it, and people will repeat it and parrot it. But, you know, you got Freddie Roach by your side. He is representing Chicago. He is very confident going into this fight. And if you can beat Isaac Cruz in the co-feature fight on a card like this, we've got a new star. We've got an absolute new star in our hands.
Yeah, what an opportunity for Cabrera. I mean, you go and silence the doubters. You beat a guy like Isaac Cruz, you're already in the thick of it right then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a big event today. Terence Crawford going up against Errol Spence for all the belts. Terence Crawford, the WBO belt holder, and Errol Spence with the other three, the unified champ at welterweight. I guess if we're looking back and thinking back to other big welterweight fights, the one that's really obviously stands out in recent history is the Mayweather against Pacquiao one. People have said this is the biggest welterweight fight since that fight, or maybe the biggest fight in boxing since that fight. For people who were burned and spent $100, the casual fans who spent $100 and felt like, well, that wasn't really worth my money. Why do you think this time will be different to what we saw between Mayweather and Pac? Why will this fight deliver?
So Mayweather got a lot of criticism that I thought was unfair because he is a strong defensive fighter. And then that combined, that defensive soundness was combined with a Pacquiao who was somewhat overmatched, and in the end kind of revealed he was injured. So you just didn't get high-octane offense from Pacquiao. That was really kind of missing. Now, again, we'll see how this goes. And again, there's questions about Errol Spence, post-car wreck, blah, blah, blah. I think most of those, as I mentioned yesterday, were answered for me in the Ugas fight. But here's my point. Bud looked to me to be an absolutely tremendous physical condition. Errol Spence as well. They both have different kinds of offensive games. Great counterpunching, as we mentioned before. Errol Spence, the Terminator. In other words, the unique combination at that moment in time when Pacquiao and Mayweather met, you just don't have any of that here, at least not that we can detect at this point. So I understand why folks might be like, well, you guys told me it was going to be great, and then it wasn't all that great. Different fighters, different time, different body types, all kinds of differences. I'm much more hopeful for this one.
Yeah, and one thing I love so much about this fight is it feels like both guys have massive chips on their shoulders. You know, both guys, it feels like they have something to prove. Like Errol Spence is tired of people saying, you're not the same guy since the car accident, right? He's only had 2 fights, 15-month layoff. He wants to prove that he is the man. He's always been at 147. This is my division. I'm going to be the first undisputed champion. Then you have Terence Crawford, who, you know, towards the end of his time with Top Rank was feeling very disrespected, didn't feel like he was being promoted enough, wasn't getting the attention that he deserves. This is a true pound-for-pound fighter, right? He has gone up the divisions, right? And he's coming and he's chasing him down. He was very upset when the fight fell through back in November. He was the one that went out on social media and tried to explain this was not my fault. I tried to make it happen, all that stuff and more. And so it feels like they both have a point to prove. And for Crawford especially, he can make history. He could be the first male fighter in the history of boxing in the 4-belt era to be undisputed in 2 different weight classes. That's a really big deal.
Shout out Clarissa Shields.
First women's fighter and first fighter, period. He would be the first male. And that's a huge deal, especially in a division like 147. So I love the fact that they both have something to prove. They both have chips on their shoulders. But there's also actual history at stake here. So to your point about Mayweather and Pacquiao, that was great. That was historic because it was like Clash of Titans. But again, to my point last night, it was that rotten banana that you got, you know.
Here comes the banana.
At the
you guys like fruit.
At the top of the at the top of the
Weird
heap.
setup, right?
You know what I mean? It was just like no one likes that banana. It's good in a smoothie, but it's not good to see. This one's
Banana
gonna be
bread.
great.
Banana bread.
Banana bread smoothie,
Yeah.
but not on its own. This one's good on its own. Trust me.
You mentioned Terence Crawford moving up through the weight divisions and being a true pound-for-pound fighter. What about that kind of difference in natural size? Because Errol Spence in the Olympics at 152, then a 147 fighter his entire career, whereas Terence has been outstanding at 135 and 140 and now growing into that 147. But do you think that natural size advantage that Errol Spence has will make a big difference in this fight?
It will if he's able to corral a guy like Crawford. I mean, it's not to say, I mean, for example, Errol Spence fought Mikey Garcia entirely on the outside just to prove a point. You know, I can fight on the outside if I want to. I'm not an inside guy all the time, and he went and did that. I think he did some outside fighting with Van Eerden and some other ones. But I would say this, when you watch like Bud in his previous weight class against Indongo or, pick any guy from before, Gamboa, whatever, you're like, I don't know if the guy is going to be able to deal with like the punishment that a guy like Errol Spence can dish out. I mean, it's so overwhelming, right? But the way he looked yesterday, the way he looked against Avanesyan, I got to tell you, I do think that Spence obviously is the naturally bigger guy, been here his whole career, and I do think he's going to have a physical advantage. But it's probably not the physical advantage that I would have thought maybe a month or two ago. It looks to me like Crawford has really settled into this weight class.
Yeah, and a lot of people were dissecting how Spence looked on the scale yesterday. It's important to note those weigh-ins were at about 4 local time. He weighed in 6 hours prior, so that wasn't the true. So 3, excuse me. We got a stickler back there. He got me by an hour. The point is,
he'll be fired by the end of the show.
Actually, it was 3:26 local time. The point is, I think it was like 5 hours prior that he actually weighed in. So that was actually the true, like, dehydrated version of Errol Spence. One thing that I love about this is it's very rare, as you know. It's very rare that there's a like bilateral, if the word is, rematch clause, right?
Mutually enforceable, they say.
Mutually enforceable. What a great term. And I love the fact that it's the loser who has to trigger it, but it's the winner who gets to pick the weight. So could you imagine if Terence Crawford loses tonight and says, all right, give me the rematch, but then Spence says, I'll see you at 154. What?
But see, here's the thing about that. I wonder, like, I know. You heard it as well as I heard it. Spence was like, this is the last one at 147. Yeah. But are they really going to have a rematch? And I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but are they really going to have a rematch for none of the belts? Because the belts will only be on the line at 147. So it's like, don't get me wrong, would I like to see them healthy? And would that also confer an advantage for Spence if they did go to 154? Because then that is a big jump for Crawford. Yeah. That's a big one for him. Then you would really wonder. I don't know what they want. I don't know what they will do, but that's been on my mind.
I guess I'm interested what you were talking about when you said Errol Spence, we saw him box on the outside against Mikey Garcia. And yes, he did that to prove a point and prove that, yes, I can do that. In this fight, you want to see him be that pressure fighter that goes to the body, that really breaks you down. That's the best approach against Terence Crawford.
I don't think he can beat Terence Crawford on the outside. I just don't think he can do it. If the whole fight is on the outside like that, Errol Spence has a phenomenal jab, but the jab is a power jab. It's a stick jab. He's really trying to move you back with it and then corral your movement and then become that inside guy where he's doing the tremendous body work. He's moving you around with his head. He's underhooking. He's pulling. He's pushing. He's turning and breaking your posture. He literally wrestles these guys. He makes it physical with them. Doing that at range doesn't give you any of those opportunities. And Bud at range, is awesome. So, like, I just don't understand why you have to do some outside boxing. Bud's going to make you. But if the majority is outside boxing, that easily favors Bud Crawford.
I have 2 big questions that I can't wait to see answered, especially in the first couple rounds. Number 1, how does Crawford start the fight? Southpaw or orthodox, right?
Yep.
That's a big one. He loves to go both ways, but 70% of the time, as of late, he is going southpaw. Spence, natural southpaw. Will he go southpaw or orthodox southpaw? And also, you know, Crawford, it has been said, start slow. Can you afford to start slow against Errol Spence?
I don't know.
I don't think so, right? Compared to who he has fought in the past, you could afford to start slow against an Avanesian. Not so much against an Errol Spence, in my opinion. So those are two big things.
I mean, you can give him a round or two, but if it starts looking like 3, 4 rounds, I mean, just think about it here in Vegas. Do you really want to give 4 rounds to your opponent and then hope the judges get it right for what could be 8 closely contested rounds? I just wouldn't want to do it. I just wouldn't want to do it.
All right, we do have a second fight coming up for you. It is a longtime training partner of Terence Crawford, Steven Nelson, fighting against the man with the best name on the card, I think, Rowdy Legend Montgomery. I'll hand over to the boys to take you through it.
All right, here we go. You can hear the intro music, quite festive. We talked to, I think it's Vicente. What is his last name? I forget the name of the singer, famous Mexican singer. All right, here, Ariel. Luke Thomas, Ariel Helwani. We spoke to Rowdy Legend yesterday, Ariel.
What a name. What a guy.
He has, you can see, look at the hair here. It's half colored because he did a duality of man Full Metal Jacket bit, right?
He told us that there's a light side and a dark side to him. And then I gave him the layup, and I'm like, so which side do we see in the ring? Thinking naturally that he would say, of course, the dark side. And he said both. And so I'd love to know, you know, what kind of fighter he is when he's, you know, when he's the light side of himself. By the way, was definitely not expecting him to walk out to that music.
Also, to get the name right, it was Vicente Fernandez, who is the singer of the famous song El Rey, the King.
He's sort of like the Taylor Swift, right, of that region?
Vicente Fernandez?
Yes.
No, he's a... Yeah, no. No.
I popped her. That was a pop in the pro wrestling world.
By the way, we didn't talk about this. So Steven Nelson, you can see he stitches his own getup.
Love it.
And it looks to me like he's doing an Iron Man bit. So he's come in before on a gurney, or you know what they wheeled in like Hannibal Lecter. He's come in with the Michael Myers getup before. I can't see from here. Yeah, it's the Iron. He's coming in like Iron Man.
He is a true showman. He's a Renaissance man. He's a comedian. As you said, he's a seamster. What do you call that?
I do not.
Someone who likes to sew.
Seamstress has always been the word,
yes,
but I think that's gendered, right?
What is that? Is it seamstress?
I think that is gendered, yeah.
I'm just going to call him someone who likes to sew his own stuff.
Tailor?
Also, he also tailors, I'll run with that, he tailors his friend Terence Crawford's gear too.
Right. I believe that's Bomac.
It is.
In the ring.
Down Promotions, TBC Promotions, TGB Promotions, and Showtime Pay-Per-View.
Hell of a suit there on Miguel Flores.
DraftKings Sportsbook, O'Reilly Auto Parts, Strays.
This bout is 168 pounds, super middle. And we asked Steven Nelson what he wanted out of this experience. Like, obviously you want the W. We don't mean that. But beyond it, what is this fight supposed to do for you? And basically at 35 years of age, he wants to be ranked. He's undefeated, and he wants to get opponents to help him ultimately see, like, how far can I actually take it in boxing? Let's see what this can do.
Introducing first in the red corner, wearing the black trunks. He weighed in at 166.8 pounds. With 10 wins,
also worth noting, he was out for 2 years, had a terrible injury, Achilles injury, right?
Yeah.
And thought that his career might be done. So now that he's back, he's all the way back. He returned just a few months ago. He's like, let's go. Let's try to make a run. And I don't think he wants to be in... I think he has great love for Terence. He loves being his teammate. He loves training with him. But you don't want to just be Terence's guy, right? You want your own identity, your own path, your own career.
And listen, he's 35 years of age. Rowdy Legend Montgomery at 37. Time is of the essence if you're going to make an impact here in the world of boxing.
Here is Steven Soko Nelson.
Why is his nickname so cold? Because the kids say that he is so cold at everything he does. And I think that's a good thing, right? That's what I'm told.
Unless you're his opponent.
Well, it's interesting because, like they say, it's lit, which would be fire.
Okay, Ariel.
But here they're saying cold because he's good. So I'm not sure. Is it like, it's sort of like the hair, the duality, the cold and the fire? What do you guys think?
It's bussin' for real, for real. Now you can shoot me.
Gentlemen, you had your instructions.
Is that the same as Riz? I was told Riz is something. I don't know what that is.
Let me just tell you, I'm uninterested in the life and language of teenagers.
I don't know.
Can I just be honest about that?
There's like a whole new vocabulary now. It's crazy. It's like a whole dictionary of words that I don't know what they mean.
10-round super middleweight bout here set for us. This is our last preliminary bout. Steven Nelson, excuse me, 18-0, Rowdy Legend, 10-4-1.
Okay, here we go.
And Mr. Montgomery, Mr. Rowdy Legend, coming on a short notice as well. Obviously, as you can see here, two right-handed fighters. Steven Nelson in the red and gold trunks, I guess you would say. Black trunks there for Montgomery. The tape that I've seen on Nelson, good jab. Sometimes he'll double it up. He can counterpunch. He can go moving forward. He's a well-rounded boxer in general.
This fight was announced 9 days ago. Nelson was supposed to fight someone else, so Montgomery coming in on very short notice said he didn't watch any tape on Nelson. I can't believe people do that still in 2023 with all the footage out there.
His argument, I understand it. He's like, well, if you've been in the amateurs, then you know you just show up and you just have to fight who, whatever. And you hear the same thing from guys who wrestled scholastically.
Right.
Hey, man, it's a tournament. You just have to go and see who's there. But we're not wrestling in high school.
Yes.
We're not fighting in the amateurs. This is the pros. It's a different ball game, and you got to kind of adapt it. Wait, running in wide hooks to the body, that is dangerous against a guy like Nelson. You can hear Bomac telling him to double it up. There it is, and then he sticks to the body. Good connection between coach and fighter, between Nelson and Bomac. Bit of an up jab there from Nelson. And then he eats one on the way in. Ooh. Oh, good. Two left hands went through.
That second one.
You can see the right hand comes down when he throws the left hook for Montgomery, and Nelson made him pay.
Yeah, Montgomery's a little bit dazed. He caught him with that one. His legs buckled.
Not a ton of head movement from Montgomery. But if you're Nelson, they say you don't get paid by the hour, so you want to get him out there as fast as possible. But if I'm him, I wouldn't mind getting a few rounds of experience if I could.
Why is that? Why not try to make a splash?
Yeah. I mean, listen, that's what they all say, right? I'm just sort of pointing out that he has, in his last fight and then this one, let's assuming it goes short for him, he'll have had not much good look of an opponent who could resist and then problem solving through it. Would you want to take that against an opponent who really will make you do that without having sufficient practice? Well, it's questionable.
Well, he's a budding comedian. He can finish up early here and go play at Caesars. Go open for Seinfeld tonight.
Kate Abdo made him tell jokes on the call.
You want to repeat it, Kate? Joke that
no, thank you. No. Looking to keep my job.
Round one in the books. Easy round to call there for Steven Nelson. Hi, everyone. Luke Thomas, Ariel, Helwani, Kate Abdo as well. The last of our preliminary contest. Here you have Rowdy Legend. Let's take a look at the highlights here. He comes in with hooks to the body and eats a left hook. Good combination there. Went body with the right hand, left upstairs to the head for Steven Nelson. He's a well-trained fighter. Bomac, Derek James has the celebrity stable, and for good reason. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? But Bomac is a great coach, giving his fighter good instructions. He follows it. I like what I'm seeing so far.
I mean, we talk about, fighters with something to prove tonight. I feel like Bomac has a little bit to prove as well. James has put him down in the build-up to this, saying that he's not on his level. He's not my competition. Look at my stable. Look at his.
Right.
I mean, what a feather in Bomac's hat it would be if he could beat the undefeated Errol Spence. You have to wonder and think that Terence Crawford is watching this right now, hoping that his guy can set the tone for the night.
Yeah, that's always a dicey proposition, right? When you fight on the same card with teammates, and then if they win, great, but what if they get flatlined? It becomes a bit of an issue, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, you can tell they're trying to establish body work to set up the headshot. You can already see Montgomery keeps his hands a little on the low side. They have to kind of hang out in front of him. They're going to try and make him pay for that. Although I will say I think Montgomery has a bit of a speed advantage over Nelson.
Feels like that chin is exposed. He's very tall, very lanky, upright.
Also, Montgomery breathing with his mouth open.
Well, like we said, took this fight on very short notice.
Ooh.
You just feel the big shot is coming from Nelson.
Boy, he escaped that one landing much worse by the skin of his teeth, and it didn't jab to get his way off the ropes. If Steven Nelson starts opening up here, he might find this fight is over soon. Oh. Hard overhand right, well done. Lowered his level and then came over the top. A little bit of Isak Cruz there from Steven Nelson. And you can hear the game plan from Bomac. They pressure, pressure, pressure. You an Iron Man fan, Ariel?
No, never saw it.
Not an Iron Man
How
fan?
about that?
You've never seen any Iron Man movie?
No, I actually go out of my way not to see any of those movies. Can't be bothered. What is this? What am I, 12 years old? I need to watch comic books? Come to life? I got better things to do. Right, Kate? Boy, that's not a hot take. That's a the veteran take. That's a mature take. That's a grown man take.
It's the kind of.
By the way, I love pro wrestling. I just want you to know. That is pro wrestling is great. That's the real stuff.
Great jab. Oh, here we go. Cornered his movement. Head wide. I mean, high in the air. Steven Nelson literally just measuring him at this point. And then the referee doesn't intervene, by the way, not wearing gloves. Totally Ariel.
Yeah, good call.
And now the fight is starting to turn here in the second round. Nelson able to pressure him, lowering the level, coming up top. And he's having a lot of success. I mean, literally using his lead hand to push and measure.
They're two different weight classes. If I set the line at 5 rounds, you taking the over or the under?
At this point, I might take the under.
Yeah,
I might take the under at this point.
How do you have it scored, Kate?
Do you know I wasn't scoring rounds, but I think Steven
Nelson
Nelson
totally
has been super
lied
dominant.
and said 2018, just based on our discussion, in case you...
What you said though about different weight classes, that's true.
Oof.
Nelson looks so thick in that mid area, right?
Look at his back as well.
Yeah, great job using the jab to cut him off, presses him up against the ropes, has the inside frame, and then comes over the top with the right hand. It's just good boxing from Steven Nelson.
No, I'm very impressed. I mean, this is a guy who is a barber, he's an artist, he's a mechanic, he's a carpenter, he's flying planes these days. What can't he do? He's a true Renaissance man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking about Nelson, of course. And in case the people at home don't know, Rowdy Legend isn't his actual real name. He changed his name a few years ago because he didn't like his given name. Nevertheless, it's a tremendous name.
And a tough assignment, taking a fight on basically a week's notice or so against a guy who is this experienced, this ready to go, comes from a great camp, has something of a celebrity trainer. It's a difficult assignment. Yeah, I mean, the game plan is sort of pretty obvious, right? They're going to change angles on him, change levels, make him transfer defense, and then make him pay. That's basically it.
So you know what's so interesting? Nelson is the guy who probably has the greater career upside. And he told us that in the 7 days since he had to prepare for this fight, he watched all the footage he could find on Rowdy Legend. On the flip side, you have the guy who's coming in against the tougher fighter who watched nothing. And you kind of see some of that playing out here, right?
Yeah, you absolutely do. I mean, it's like, what fighters will tell you, this has been my experience, is that they're like, well, I don't want to watch too much footage because then they'll get in my head. Okay, fair enough. And then the coach watches, and then they kind of work on that through the game plan. But just utterly rejecting the idea that prep is valuable is the part where I have a little bit of difficulty understanding. I love the rhythm disruption of Nelson. You can see his timing is really good. He's catching what I call the half beat. He's not catching Montgomery on the 1, 2, 3. He's catching him on the 1, 2, 3.5, right there in between. Bomac talking him out of using the fancy feet there a little bit.
Feeling himself a little bit. Yeah, Montgomery's mouth wide open.
It is ready to be checked if he's not careful. Yeah, this is a great job. So it's going to be important here for Nelson as he tries to corner, not to throw wide hooks that a guy like Montgomery can weave under. A lot of straight punches, and then when you're in close, you can really dig to the body with wider shots. So you can see bring your feet with you, something that Errol Spence and Bud Crawford excel at. Rather than reaching and getting away from your balance, they bring their feet with them in motion, and therefore they're able to always be in position defensively and offensively. And that way you can also have the most amount of power.
That's why you got to be careful. Running in and stuff. Keep it rhythm.
I'll say this, Montgomery did a decent job this round of keeping himself out of the worst kind of trouble.
That was his best round just because he didn't get hit as much.
Right. Yeah, so, yeah. Hey, listen.
There's something to be said for that, I suppose. He didn't take a lot of damage, but he didn't throw anything of consequence.
I can't really think of anything that landed that it was memorable. But he did keep himself in spot for another round. We shall see what happens here in this 168-pound affair.
By the way, is the inside of his ear tattooed there?
Yes it is.
Holy smokes. I can't think of anything that would hurt more than that. I mean,
you can get your eyelid tattooed. That would hurt.
Oh, yeah, or the inside of your lip. That's a weird.
That would be awful. Yeah, you can do that.
Why would you get the inside of your... I don't think I've ever seen that before. Could you imagine how much that would hurt?
Yeah. The guy who did one of my bigger pieces got a medieval weapon tattooed on his scalp.
Oh, my.
And it covers 2/3 of it. And he did it with no anesthesia.
Oh.
So, shouts to my guys over at District Tattoo in Washington, D.C.
Any tattoos, Kate?
No, sir.
You and I both, we could be buried in a Jewish cemetery.
That's a relief for me.
Yeah, that's true. In case you were wondering. Did you know that? If you have a tattoo,
I had heard that. I did not know if it was true or not. Okay, we have a director here who I really just don't like.
Can he be on air, though? Because like he's countering all our points, but no one can hear him except for us, and I'd like to debate these things.
Round 4 here between Nelson and Montgomery. And so far, it's just been the Steven Nelson show. So Cole doing a really good job for the most part, staying out of the big flurries there.
A little pressure there.
Some signs of life, right?
Yes, maybe he was just playing possum in those early rounds. Ooh. That chin is exposed, though.
I love the body work from Steven Nelson. So many guys today just want to be headhunters. They want that one-hitter quitter, and of course, who doesn't? But when you just realize you have so many targets, so many opportunities, and when you weave them all together, you get a better result in the end. I just love body work. Something of a lost art, but I'm glad it's being back.
Look no further than Tuesday morning in Japan. In a way,
right.
Continue to invest in the body, then bang in the 8th. And it was all because of the body shots early on.
Ooh, fantastic left hook. Weaved under the right hand of Montgomery and then scored a left over the top. Nice work. And here he is. You see him again, catching him on the exit. Kind of leaping into him. I won't call it a gazelle punch, but able to close the distance quickly. Oh, right hand just misses. Good work by Montgomery getting his head off the center line. And then a right hand there for Nelson as Montgomery popped up off an uppercut. The footwork of Montgomery the last 2 rounds has kept him alive in this fight. A lot of L-stepping out of the corner, jabbing and then trying to turn. Lateral movement at times. You can see it right there. It's a good idea to turn a guy like Nelson who's going to work behind that jab. Constantly motion him to the outside of it, to the weak side. It won't win you the fight, but it'll keep you around.
Absolutely. He's more of a moving target right now.
Oh. A little bit better for Montgomery that round, Ariel.
The last 2 rounds have been his best. Obviously, we were kind of joking about the fact that he wasn't doing much. Actually, I would argue, we don't have the stats in front of us. I think he probably threw more in that round than any of the other rounds.
Had to be,
right?
yep.
Some of it is being blocked and defended quite well by Nelson, but he's...
There's that left hand we were talking about coming up under. It's good work from him, good recognition. Both guys kind of bringing their feet together and landing heavy on the front foot, which is why they're a little bit off balance when they clash like that.
He heard my line about the 5 rounds.
Yeah, that must have been it.
Yeah.
Montgomery refusing water.
And not sitting on the stool as well. Katie Taylor-esque. He has not sat down once. How do you feel about that, Luke?
If they can do it and they can maintain their output through the course of the fight, I am the last person to get involved.
Sure.
But
why not just take the seat?
It takes all, dude. These guys, you have to be in exactly the right mentality, and sometimes being that, a little bit aggro kind of puts them where they need to be. Others not. Others doesn't matter at all. Like with Terence, people were getting on him. Excuse me, not Terence. I'm sorry, Errol Spence Jr. being like, "Oh, he broke contact with the eyesight first," and he's like, "Dude, I've been doing that, and I've been undefeated."
I agree. That's silly. Like, how long are we going to stand there for? 10 minutes?
It's like, I'm not trying to look at another guy's eyes for an hour.
Yes. Who cares? Like, if anyone chalks that up to being an L for the guy who looked away, that's just nonsense.
You know how it is on Fight Week fans are like, who won the press conference, who won the weigh-in? Yeah, let me know who wins the fight. How about that?
I've scored press conferences. It is
really?
Silly. Yeah, of course. Who doesn't, right?
I try not to. I'm probably guilty of it, but I try not to.
Be careful, stop. Keep your head up.
Went for the guillotine choke there.
Wrapping the head, controlling the posture. It can hurt or strain the lower back over time. And I love that high elbow, frames them up, keeps them upright, and there's the right hand, of course, that's coming right behind it. Sometimes they'll go to the body with the right in a circumstance like that. There's a good inside frame by Nelson, misses with a subsequent punch, took a little longer than he needed to. Good bit of a shovel hook there, kinda.
Oh, mouthpiece just came out.
Who's mouthpiece?
And by the way, I'll be curious to see what happens with Errol Spence tonight with the mouthpiece, right?
That was a big talking point. He said he was very afraid that his teeth were going to fly out. And by the way, we mentioned the Ugas fight, like the Ugas rocked him.
Right. I mean, so again, I had the worst seats imaginable for that fight. So I was all the way in the back, and what we saw was Ugas just drill him with the hardest shot.
By the way, Luke, right now I'm very embarrassed because we were talking up Steven Nelson's sewing skills, and his patch is hanging. I mean, how embarrassing is that? This is his fault. He can't blame someone else.
Well, he's winning the boxing fight.
Sure, but he's clearly not a great seamstress.
Oh, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
I mean, it's. I've never seen something like this. This is so embarrassing.
Would like to see. You can see a lot of stuff coming from up, from low to up. In distance closing, like that kind of up jab, he's throwing like a bit of a bit of a shovel hook, kind of almost like a lunging uppercut. I like to see him actually come over the top a little bit. Good work, rolling through, changing angles. Good job there by Steven Nelson. Good right hand there. He's sort of a catch and shoot opportunity there. Ooh. A lot of low to high stuff. You know, I was a little bit worried for Montgomery. Rounds 2 or 3. We're now through halfway. 5 rounds in, 5 to go, or at least 5 scheduled anyway. Still all Steven Nelson, Ariel, but Montgomery doing enough to stay around.
Absolutely. I would give every single one of these rounds to Nelson, but this fight is a lot closer than I think we all expected it to be, especially considering how those first 2 rounds went. I think the thing was, first couple rounds we saw the light side of his hair show up.
Right.
Now we're starting to see the dark side show up.
And for Nelson, like I said, he's starting to get the round experience, but then it becomes a question of like, okay, it's fine to get experience, but if you're that, listen, remember what he said. He wanted to be ranked coming out of this. Now you've got the rounds under your belt. Now it's time to step on him if you can.
You need a stoppage. If you need to beat a guy like Rowdy Legend if you want to start being in that discussion.
You know, I'm not going to make the exact comparison, but I'll just say, if you go back to the Jaron Ennis, Karen Chukadzian fight, when one guy is kind of defensively moving, it can make it a little, you know, and they're not really trying to win, they're just trying to move. It can make it a little bit harder to put them away. Again, those are Jaron Ennis in a different, utterly utter category, same division, but completely, or well, I should say 147 in the main event. But nevertheless, it just is sort of emblematic of a little bit of what we're getting here. Although I will say, Rowdy Legend trying a little bit more.
He is throwing more than he was in the first couple rounds. But I get your point. The target is not as stationary.
Don't get away from the jab. Oh, good shot. That's why you got to stay with it. You're making him react. There you go. You're making him react. So you got to get him with the second shot.
Happy to report that that patch has been removed. So perhaps a sign of things to come for Steven Nelson. You know, shit he can do.
Trying to counter him over the top of his own shot. Didn't quite get it. Nice right hand from Montgomery. Now it's Montgomery putting on some pressure,
Ariel. Up against the ropes.
Boy, we buried him way too soon.
Rowdy Legend saying, someone call the ambulance, but not for me. Nice little comeback here.
This is by far his best round. The first time I've ever seen Nelson like really react to some of the punching onslaught. Can he keep it up though? Bomac screaming angles. Ooh. Nice right hand from Nelson. And you can see him using his own head as a, not a battering ram, but leading and pushing the weight of Montgomery into the ropes. Montgomery may have, again, we're talking about a guy on short notice here, may have punched himself out. Let's see. He's able to get combinations, but then he's stationary at the end of them. Your friend Daniel Cormier will call that taking pictures.
Yes.
Right? And you got to roll underneath and you got to move away. But again, we're talking about a guy who's taking a fight on incredibly short notice. You have to have some understanding of what they're going to be capable of. And it looks to me like he might be slowing again.
Yeah, but you have to wonder what Nelson is thinking right now, right? I mean, this is, now we're 6 rounds in, and all of a sudden this guy who you thought you were going to steamroll is putting up a pretty darn good fight.
And now it looks like at least this round they're having a bit of a, I mean, they're still fighting at range, but a lot of this is inside fighting, at times anyway. Good job by Nelson to weather the storm a little bit, and now he's applying the pressure.
Some big right hands.
Here comes Nelson, right at the bell. Montgomery shaking his head.
Wow.
Hey!
That was a tremendous round.
Great round in the books there.
And he cut him open.
He's bleeding a little bit. Nothing
what would you
too
score
bad.
That round for?
I was just thinking that. I wasn't scoring it in real time. I would...
It was like 3/4 in favor of, I kind of just want to give it to Rowdy Legend.
I would probably still give it to Nelson, but that was certainly the best round of Montgomery's for Montgomery in this fight. Again, I'm not judging at home, so for folks being like you're crazy, I might be. I was not judging it. I was just kind of watching. Yeah, nice right hand, kind of walked into it. They wrap up. He's got the overhook. Now they're going to push him over into the ropes.
I can also say that the biggest punches were probably landed by Nelson, so I'm probably being a little kind and wanting to see the scale balance out here.
The signs of life from him were so much stronger this time. Sure. They can affect your perception of the fight. Judging is not easy. People kill the judges. Me too, but it's tough. And I just want to say, I really, knock on wood here, really hope that I don't mind the judges being involved tonight, but I just don't want that to be in any way a talking point when it's over.
I don't want any, that's boxing, none of that, no referee stuff, no judging stuff.
They got a good officiating crew for this one, about as good as you're going to get, so I'm okay with it. And here we are, round 7. Let's see if Nelson can capitalize on what he was working with at the end of round 6. Yeah, this is Nelson's opportunity right here when he's got him on the ropes and kind of let him back in a little bit. Yeah, they slowed down. This doesn't have quite the pace of round 6, does it?
That last round may have been the apex of Montgomery's performance because he has slowed down considerably. As has Nelson to a degree, but we're not seeing much at all from Montgomery. That thought maybe the tides were turning a little bit. Not the case.
You can hear the coaches.
Don't get desperate.
Yeah, for Nelson, kind of reaching with that right hand a little bit.
Well, the last thing you want at this point is a situation where Nelson is like, let me just get rid of this guy and throw something sloppy and then gets caught. That would be disastrous.
Also, I will say this. It's the footwork of Montgomery and his jab. It's not hurting Nelson, but you can see he's using it to change angles, kind of disrupt the rhythm of Nelson a little bit. And even that is not necessarily working as intended, but it's having an effect. It's keeping him in the fight. Good stiff right hand from Nelson there. Would love to see more body work from Nelson to take away the legs a little bit of Montgomery.
Especially when your opponent is that tall and lanky, right? Right. And he's so, he's so low to the ground, Nelson is. There's definitely a height advantage for Montgomery. Would love to see him go to the body more. Some hooks to the body. Straights.
7 rounds down. 3 left to go here for our last preliminary bout on the Spence versus Crawford preliminary card. Luke Thomas, Ariel Helwani, Kate Abdo here with you.
Let's say this is 7-0 or 6-1.
Yeah, basically.
At worst.
Yeah, basically.
For Nelson.
Montgomery looks like he's definitely going to earn a moral victory. I don't know how much more than that at this stage. But again, given the consideration about late notice, it's going to be hard to do much more.
Well, it's interesting you say that. If he goes the distance, I would say that would be a moral victory for Montgomery and somewhat deflating for Nelson, right? Even if he does skunk him or wins 9 rounds to 1, which is kind of crazy. But I think I thought that he was going to knock him out under 5 rounds.
His last opponent, Nelson, James Ballard, this was on actually Bud Crawford's last card, which was the Evanesian fight. And Ballard lost 247 into round 1. He looked like he didn't have his balance like when he got into the ring. And of course, that just doesn't tell you much about Nelson. This one will tell you a little bit more. And again, Montgomery using some good footwork, a decent jab to kind of keep him off. But I'm with you. I was expecting, that one looked to me like he pushed him down. Let's see what the ref says here. Right, calls it a push.
Yeah. No knockdown, he stepped on his shoe.
There we go.
His shoe. Did you watch that pay-per-view, by the way? The one in Nebraska that Chris Cyborg fought on?
I did not. Well, I mean, I watched the fight after the fact, but not live. Yeah, you can see he's moving a little bit off rhythm, which is what Bomac is talking about. Doesn't quite have his feet set when he's throwing. Doesn't have the power, but the opportunity is there. And there is blood trickling down over the left eye of Montgomery, and it's clearly having an effect on him. Good right hand. Hard to know what he can see here. And here comes downhill Steven Nelson.
Nelson kind of built like a running back, and it just feels like he is going through that defense right now. Head down.
A little bit of that peekaboo guard there from Nelson. You can hear his corner calling for the right straight left hook. Or 2 and 3. They might be asking him to throw combinations.
They keep asking for that 2 and 3.
Yeah. Right straight left hook.
Yep.
I mean, you can see it's open. It's there.
It is right there.
Comes in leading with an uppercut. Ooh, that is dangerous.
You know, Bomac mentioned, he mentioned something earlier that you brought up just recently about his feet catching up. He's lunging a lot.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like he's getting as much power in his shots as he should be.
Some guys can leave their feet and really land, and of course there's a lot of circumstances where it can be a good idea, but in general, you got to be rooted
right.
to get the kind of power you want. Contact with the floor. Here we go. This is his chance. Good left hook. Nice body shot. These are his best moments, Ariel, when he's got him up against the ropes like this, crowding him. He's the more physical of the two.
He should try to do work right here. Not sure about that.
You can hear his corner, give yourself some room, don't smother your own punches. But an easy round to score that time for Steven Nelson. 2 more in the books here, actually 2 more left scheduled for our 168-pound preliminary card bout.
Montgomery taking the stool now.
Yes, I don't blame him. I don't blame him.
I didn't notice if he did it in the last round, but majority of the fight he hasn't. Obviously, he has taken a lot of shots. Credit to him for staying in there, but this has been all Nelson. And look at that.
Pushed him down, although say the timing by which he made the contact was really good from Nelson, but it wasn't, he didn't get punched down, he got pushed down. And here we are again, he leans back off to his right, eats a right for it. There's the inside frame, body shot, jab, right hand misses, but he stays on top of him. Great round for Steven Nelson. 2 more to go if he doesn't get it done. Inside the distance.
And perhaps, as you mentioned earlier, he just wanted to get some rounds in.
Could be. I do think that the movement has given him a little bit of trouble.
Oh, there's that left hook.
Yeah, they don't want him brawling with Montgomery, wisely. You don't want to fight, I mean, just in general, you don't want to box, you don't want to fight on another guy's terms if you don't have to.
There's just no need for it, especially since Montgomery's best round was when they were brawling.
Right. And there might be certain things that they make you do through the course of a bout, but even then, do that on your terms, not theirs. A little bit of talking there from Montgomery. Here we go. Got him up against the ropes. Got the frame on the left hand. You can see it. And he gets sort of elbow pushed by Montgomery.
Without a doubt, Nelson's best moments have been when he's had him pressed up against the rope. So if he can move the action there, like right here, I think he'll have great success.
Yeah, see how he jabbed and then turned his own back to the ropes? I mean, there's any number of ways to make that work for you, but I just personally feel like, to your point, not doing that, not turning and then creating back exposure to the ropes is going to serve his interest more. Like this, obviously, is going to serve his interest more. Right. And by the way, for tonight's main event, I'm actually really curious to see how those clinches go. Errol Spence, like, absolutely fights like 2 cats in a bag out of those things. The speed with which the referee intervenes could have a dramatic effect on the main event.
By the way, I mentioned it earlier, but I didn't really ask for your answer, so that's my bad. Do you think Crawford will fight predominantly southpaw or orthodox?
He typically fights other southpaws as a southpaw.
Right.
So I think he'll fight southpaw.
Okay.
We shall see. It would be very interesting if he doesn't. In fact, because remember, one of the things that makes open stance, that's when you have a southpaw versus orthodox, a little bit more doable is you can take away someone's jab a little bit more nimbly by virtue of being closest to you. But I don't know if he wants to do that. So we'll see.
Would you say he's the best in the game right now at that?
Who?
Crawford.
At being a switch hitter?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. I think number 2 would be Jaron Ennis for me. Boots.
Yep. He's got a long ways to go.
All right, that's 9 rounds in the books. We got one more here to go on our Spence versus Crawford Showtime Boxing Countdown.
Baby.
Luke
Less
Thomas,
than
Errol
30 minutes.
Kate Abdo. I know. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. Look at the highlights here. Comes with the uppercut and then beautiful kind of a swivel jab there, just a jab up top. And a little bit of inside fighting, tie up there. Easy fight to score. Nelson in full control. They might give Montgomery a round. We'll see. But credit to Montgomery coming in on short notice, making this a lot more work for Nelson than I certainly thought it was going to be.
And as we said earlier, this is not one of those cards where you just want to show up for the main event.
Right.
You've got Nonito Donaire fighting. You've got a young, hungry, up-and-coming Cuban opening the show. You've got Isaac Cruz in the co-feature. Something for everyone. Buy that pay-per-view. Less than 30 minutes.
And you hear ring announcer Miguel Flores. Last and final round, round 10. Steven Nelson taking on Rowdy Legend Montgomery. Here, T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Sorry, what about those Flores boys? I mean, is there a more dynamic brother tandem in boxing right now?
It's a pretty good one. It's a pretty good one.
Charlos.
No, the Flores brothers. I'd put them up there against the Charlos any day. Bad weekend for the Charlos, you know? Yeah, and the Flores brothers having a way better weekend than the Charlos.
I'm just going to leave that one alone.
I mean, these guys are unbelievable.
They love Chicago.
You know, I covered WEC 40 with Ray Flores. We were the only 2 video guys there back in 2009. Main event, Miguel Torres, Takeya Mizugaki in Chicago. Remember that?
Oh, yes, of course.
That's when I first met Ray Flores. And I was like, this guy...
Oh, hard right hand. Sticks Nelson. He stumbles to the ropes. Sticks Montgomery. Nelson had Montgomery hurt. Kind of ropes him to the floor. They're not going to call that a knockdown.
It's like, enough of you. Nelson wants that stoppage here. Get that stoppage. Set the tone for tonight. I'm going Flores boys over Russell, but maybe the buffers. That's it.
No, the Russell brothers in boxing, Gary Antoine, Gary Russell, Gary Antonio, they're all
heard their voice, the Flores boys' voice? I mean, it's unbelievable.
They're magic on the mic.
What is going on over there in Chicago?
But here's Steve Nelson absolutely pouring it on Rowdy Legend, stuck him with a hard right hand. Credit to Montgomery for hanging on. He's got about a minute. I tell you what, I will tell you what, Ariel. Good, by the way, good job by Nelson inside framing there. But I do believe Montgomery gave everything in this fight that he had, no doubt about it.
And I don't want Nelson to take this as a moral defeat if he doesn't. He had a great fight. He showed some great skills.
He needed an opponent who could make him work. The last fight just wasn't enough, and he was coming off a long layoff after that.
2 years. He should be proud of his performance here.
Boy, Bomac is absolutely screaming for him to push it here.
Yes. 15 seconds just about left.
I'll say this, a crafty job from Montgomery to keep him in this fight. Nelson clearly getting the better of it in virtually every round, almost certainly in every round.
Wow.
But a well-matched contest in the end. We will go to the judges' scorecards here.
I am shocked that Montgomery, who's walking to the wrong corner.
Oh, a little Bad Bunny and J Balvin, one of my favorite songs, Really Jago.
My God, Bad Bunny, what a legend. Did you see when he wrestled in Puerto Rico back in May?
I heard that it was quite the show.
Entrance, the pop, the crowd reaction was incredible.
Last highlight here, as you can see, we've got Nelson moving forward, cracks him with the right hand, pushes him back to the ropes. And I think it's, yeah, tries to come through here. Let's see this replay here. Comes Nelson marching into him. It's a right hand stick to the right ear almost, kind of right behind the temple, or I should say behind the ears, almost the neck area. Great shot by Nelson. Great effort overall. He should be the clear winner. It's just a question of 9 rounds or 10.
Right. And so is this a sign of things to come for Team Crawford? We'll see in about 3 or so hours' time. But that was a solid win for a guy who needed some work, who suffered a horrible injury, who thought his career might be over. Came back in December in Nebraska. Here he is fighting on the undercard of his very good friend's defining moment. Solid prelims. I think the main card is going to be fantastic.
The fighters paying respects to each other's corners. I always like to see sportsmanship.
Yeah.
I do like this song. Just going to point that out.
Do you understand what they're saying?
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Let's go to Miguel Flores, the ring announcer, for the official decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 10 rounds of boxing, we go to the judges' scorecards. Judges Eric Cheek and Max DeLuca both saw it 99-91, and Judge David Sutherland sees it 100-90. All 3 judges in agreement for your winner by unanimous decision. And now the WBA Continental America Super Middleweight Champion, Steven Soko.
He was cold out there. Dare I say, so very cold.
So unanimous decision win, wide decision win for Steven Nelson, as we would have expected. That is the second of our prelims fight that we're bringing you on this YouTube feed. We do have 4 fights which will get started as part of the main event for you. That will all start at 5 p.m. local, so that's in about 20 minutes time, 8 p.m. Eastern for you. You can order it now, showtime.com/PPV. Let me remind you what we have ahead for you, because it is a really interesting card that's coming up, leading up to the main event with Errol and Terence going at it. So we're going to start the night with the undefeated Cuban prospect, Yoenis Tellez, who is going against the Spanish contender, Sergio Garcia. 10 rounds in that one at super welterweight. Then the legend himself, Nonito Donaire, back in the ring, looking for another run as a world champion. He fights Alexandro Santiago for the vacant WBC bantamweight title. Then right before the main event, the co-main, is the Mexican fan favorite, Isaac Cruz, against unbeaten Giovanni Cabrera in a WBA lightweight title eliminator. And then it comes down to the big one, Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford for all the belts, all the glory at 147. Let's talk about the fact that this is a fight for undisputed, because boxing, the belts have been split for what, like 60 years now. It's a very fragmented sport. We do have 3 undisputed champions currently. We've got Canelo, Jamel Charlo, Devin Haney. But what value do you assign to having one champion in a division?
Well, first of all, this will be the first ever in the 4-belt era at 147. There's 2 things that I love so much about this. Number one, this will be tonight the 6th undisputed champion crown since 2021. That means big fights are being made. That means the fights that we want to see are happening. That is tremendous. And how many times do the casual fans say, you know, when they go like, and still or and new, and we don't even know who the champion is going into the fight because the belts mean nothing? I love the fact that the belts mean something in this fight, right? It feels to me like we are in a moment right now where boxing and boxers are trying to make the belts, the divisions, everything mean something. When it was so fragmented and watered down, it was all sort of, you know, it was all sort of like falling by the wayside. And how about the fact, Luke, that on a night where there's a Fugazi belt being defended or introduced in Salt Lake City, there's a real championship fight happening here in Las Vegas. Talk to him, Luke.
I get it. I understand. Listen, here's what I would say. What's better than one face, one name, for one division. You know who the guy is. Whether they're the WBA or WBC or whatever, and again, I'm not here to demean or say one title is more than the other, but it's hard for the average public to know the difference between them. But if it's one guy, well, then it's easy. That's the first good part about it. The second good part about it is, look at how important it is to win in this division. Errol Spence has not fought in another division, and if he beats Terence Crawford tonight, some people will vote him as the very best pound-for-pound fighter in the entire sport. So to do that in this place, and I know you indicated it's never happened before in this particular weight class, we're just talking about achievement that is so hard, historically difficult to unlock. You're going to see it here tonight.
You guys talking about Bad Bunny, and I didn't know, would have had no idea that you're a Bad Bunny fan, but you talking about the Bad Bunny ring entrance made me think about how epic of a ring entrance we could have in store for you guys at home tonight. We're hearing the rumors are that it's happening.
We're hearing.
Maybe Eminem. If you didn't see the whole exchange that happened on Instagram earlier on in this fight week, Terence put up a post saying, "Who should I have walk me in?" Eminem himself responded saying, "Me, I'm a huge fan." And now it seems like that might be on the cards. How hype would you be?
Well, this was some pro wrestling stuff. I'm sorry. Like, he put that out there, and I'm like, oh, when you put... It's like in pro wrestling when they say so-and-so is not in the... Jey Uso's not in the building tonight. You know he's in the building, right? That's like 101. So when he put it out there and then Eminem responded, I was like, is Marshall Mathers showing up? Now, Marshall Mathers has been out there as of late. I saw him with Ed Sheeran a couple of weeks ago, right?
I saw that when he did the surprise appearance in Detroit.
So
very cool.
It feels like he's getting out there. He's mingling with us.
But if Terence walks in to Lose Yourself with Eminem in person, can Errol do anything to top that?
Well,
it's funny you say that.
Oh, really?
Well, okay,
It's like
I realize
something.
Well, no, hold on. We're here at a boxing event. I don't want to mix worlds, but in MMA, it's considered bad luck to walk out to lose yourself. That is true.
There's a curse.
Yeah.
You know, like the Drake curse?
Dang.
That's a real thing.
Yeah.
But none of those guys have ever actually walked out. Again, we're hearing it could happen with Eminem. That is
next level.
That's next level. That's different. So we'll see.
Could you imagine? But here's the thing. You can't walk out first with Eminem. So we still don't even know who's walking out second,
good point, yes.
We still don't even know who's walking out second. They had this coin toss on Thursday, which was fun. But then yesterday, when I spoke to Spence on the stage, he was like venting about the coin toss. And I was like, bro, don't come to me. Like, talk to someone else about it. I don't have nothing to do with this coin toss. He didn't like the fact that he was, you know, even having to partake in this. Here's the thing, though. If, in fact, Eminem is coming out, like, this is what I want to say to the audience at home. If Errol Spence walks out first, because he lost the coin toss, right?
Yeah.
Then I feel like Eminem is showing up. If we somehow find out throughout this night that Crawford is walking out first, I can't imagine you walking out with Terence Crawford and Eminem, and then Spence is just going to walk out solo with no one?
Right.
Like, you can't do that, right?
Did you tell Errol your theory about how it doesn't matter anyway because you're on the poster on the left-hand side and your name is first and that's forever?
I was actually thinking about that this morning.
Should have told him.
When I was pumping iron, I was like, you know what? Errol should.
You were in the gym this morning.
Yeah, you know, I don't like to brag. It's not about me, but I think ultimately the name should go first. You know, the A side should go first, and that person should walk out second. I don't know about this whole thing. It was probably part of the negotiations that we're going to, you know, do this whole thing. So we'll see what happens. But that's a nice little thing. Listen, if you're on the fence, if for whatever reason there's 10 minutes left in this show and you're on the fence about this pay-per-view and Eminem is the thing that's putting you over, God bless. Because I feel like we've done our part. But, hey, if you need Eminem to put you over to get this pay-per-view, then Eminem might be showing up.
It's going to be a whole bunch of celebrities showing up as well, as you would expect for a fight like this. Yesterday at the weigh-in, we saw a lot of boxing royalty, right? We saw Mike Tyson, we saw Evander Holyfield, Antonio Tarver. Who am I missing? Anybody else?
Let's see, Roy Jones Jr.
Roy Jones Jr. was also on the stage.
Caleb Plant, I think, was here, too.
Caleb Plant and Jamal Charlo were definitely here. It's going to be fascinating to see where they are seated this evening. Where do they sit tonight? Because, you know, normally the fighters all are kind of congregated in one area. Do they put them in separate blocks tonight?
Caleb Plant should sit up here where we're sitting, and they should have Charlo down there. And even if that's the case, I'm not too certain.
I know. It's going to be tough for security down there.
Yes.
You mentioned pound for pound when you were speaking earlier, and I feel like we haven't really gone hugely in depth on that. Obviously, yes, there are people that will say the winner of this fight should be the #1 pound for pound. There's also the matter of the fact that Naoya... Inoue, thank you. Fought on Tuesday in Japan, beat Stephen Fulton, looked dominant, and the fact that that was his debut at that weight, took the belts. Do you think that there's any chance that, I mean, is this just going to split boxing, or is there a right answer here in terms of who it should be?
I don't do pound-for-pound rankings, but here's kind of my general view on it. what Inoue did is kind of what Terence is trying to do tonight, where we're moving up weight classes, beating champions to do it, right? Spence has been in this weight class the whole time. So I think what you might end up getting is some people who pick Inoue no matter what. If Bud wins, there'll be some people who put him one, there'll be some people who don't. And if Spence wins, it's going to be split as well. There's going to be a diversity of opinion, and that's okay. That's what keeps the message boards moving. It's what keeps social media turning. But I do think that the winner of this fight does have a strong claim to the title. Whether they get voted, we'll see.
And again, we are so lucky that we are living in this time. I can't stop talking about this because nothing pisses me off more when uneducated and casual fans say that boxing is dead. Boxing is so alive and well. Just next month, we have maybe the next guy on the pound-for-pound list, Alexander Usyk, fighting at the end of August. So, like, we have here in the stretch of a month,
Canelo and Jamal Charlo
and then the following that we're hearing, not quite official.
Official.
There's retweets, there's posters. Well, who knows what's going? But like, let's be honest. Like that's the top 5 guys. Oh, and by the way, Artur Beterbiev, like, you know, like, what a summer, what a time.
Canada's own,
the adopted son in Quebec City. What a great scene that's going to be in. Maybe he gets Bivol down the line as well. I mean, this is such a great time. I was actually thinking between now and that rumored Canelo fight, there's a big fight every single weekend.
I'm trying to think of the last good like what year through 7 months compares to 2023. I don't know. I don't know what year has been this good in some recent memory. I'm sure some boxing scholar could tell me, but to your point,
late 90s or
to your point, what a year it has been, and we're not even close to being done.
How excited do you get about what the outfits are going to be? Do you care about the fit that the fighter comes into the ring in?
No, you guys were talking about black Air Force Ones and stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what that was all
about. Okay, but what about the ring book? Like, come on, it's an event.
Listen,
it's not just the music, it's everything,
I'm
right?
an X's and O's guy. I like the technicalities of the sport.
Wait, who did you made fun of somebody before? Palicte for his shorts.
No, I'm not. Posters, commercials, press conference, all that is hogwash to me.
But you said you could tell he was a last-minute replacement because his outfit was too basic, in your opinion.
I'm 100% lying, by the way. I love all that stuff. Okay. Are you kidding me? Like, I break that. I will do 10-9 press conference, 10-9 poster, 10-9 this, that. Like, I love all that stuff. So, yes, 100%.
Do you expect Errol to win the fit war?
That's a good question.
That is a good question. You know what? Here's the thing.
Maybe.
Do you remember the outfit Tank Davis came out for the Mayweather-McGregor card?
Oh, yeah.
Where he looked like a Smurf or something?
He was wearing like a whole fur vest.
See, I'm not with any of that.
Oh, I thought that was awesome.
I like the Michael Jackson stuff in LA. That was nice. I like the minimalist one.
Okay.
When you remember Mike Tyson used to have all black.
Oh, tremendous.
And then the sweat like shirt.
No socks.
And then that was it. You know, that's
incredible.
All you know what I want to see? I want to see and Dustin Poirier this weekend will have one on, but I want to see the Marvin Hagler war hat. That is, I mean, when that hat goes on, it's time for business.
Didn't Sean Porter wear that?
I believe he went. I believe he did wear
Errol
that. Yes,
Spence
I believe
Terence
that's
Crawford.
right.
I don't remember which way around it was. I think the Terence Crawford.
One of the
fight
coolest hats. War 2, not often used, although they may break it out for the rematch here. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait for all that stuff. You know, the Cowboys are supposed to be here, so maybe there's a little Dallas-inspired look to Errol Spence as he's representing Texas. Maybe there's a little Nebraska-inspired stuff from Crawford. He's done that in the past as well. All that stuff is tremendous. And the game has come a very long way. Like, when Amanda Serrano shows up rocking Jordans in the ring, I'm like, go, girl. Cool. I'm like, that stuff is great. Boxing needs more of that stuff.
You mentioned earlier that we had that conversation yesterday at the weigh-in around the fact that you feel like Errol Spence's performance against Yordenis Ugas answered some of those questions that people had about his health after the significant physical trauma that his body must have taken after that crash that was so well documented in 2019. We also talked about the fact that he had the surgery for the detached retina, which is what nixed the fight against Manny Pacquiao. And all of that combined meant that he took a fair amount of time out of the ring, right, and hasn't been as active as a Terence Crawford. Do you think the activity side of things, never mind the physical trauma, is just pure activity? Is that an issue for Errol tonight?
I will tell you, I'll give a shouts to Stephen Breadman Edwards. He has had a lot of influence on my thinking about this, and he noted it. We talked about it yesterday as well with when the Tank Garcia fight happened. Tank took the extra one in DC against Hector Garcia, and Ryan did not, and I think that really paid off. Now, would the result have been different if the roles had been reversed? I still think Tank is just a better fighter right now, so I don't necessarily believe that. But to that point, did it freshen him up? Did it get him ready? I think it did. I think the Avanesian fight is going to help Crawford tonight. The thing that I would go back to about Spence is his style is systemic. right? There's a little bit of improv to what Bud does. There's a little bit of like, let me just see what I can get. I mean, they're going to have a game plan too.
I heard you somewhere call him like a jazz musician, and I like that comparison. I thought that was dope.
To me, it's like, you know, to me, Errol Spence is like just a shredding guitarist, but he's got one style. He can absolutely dominate. Whereas Bud is kind of like playing the notes as he feels a little bit, and that takes him in some weird and some unusual directions, obviously winning ones. So the point I'm trying to make is I do think that the Avanesian fight will help Crawford in the end. However, for a guy like Spence to have a layoff like this, it's not as bad, given that he's got a systemic kind of approach to boxing all the time.
I'll echo something that our friend Stephen A. Smith mentioned yesterday. I am not convinced that Errol Spence is fully recovered from that car accident. I mean, I just watched it again this morning. I mean, did you look at the car accident? It's crazy that he survived that thing. No seatbelt. Like, the thing flips. Like, the fact
Can't
that he
that
is
work
alive.
to your advantage, though? Hey, like, look at what I came through.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm invincible. God's hand is on me. You know what I mean? Like, you come into it.
But it's that car accident and the injuries he sustained in there, and then the retina, and then a second car accident, which obviously wasn't as bad as the first, but, like, that's a lot of wear and tear on your body, right? That's all I'm saying. So, I mean, it's incredible. He has an angel looking up above him. I hope he is wearing a seatbelt for the rest of his life, and he should be the poster boy for seatbelt wearers. Like,
Truly.
Like, he truly is a walking miracle. But I just have questions about if he is the same guy. Talked to Chris Algieri yesterday, who fought him before the accident, and he was kind of raising the same things. Like, you know, we haven't seen that much of him post-accident, right? We saw 2 fights. And in that Ugas fight, while he did answer some questions, he did get rocked, right?
He did.
And you wonder if the guy pre-accident gets rocked against the likes of Ugas. So I just feel like we're about to see, you know, if we're finally going to put to bed that question tonight, right?
Yes.
After tonight, we will no longer have to ponder if he is the same guy.
Listen, if it is true that Errol Spence is diminished, I don't think he can beat Bud Crawford. You have to be at your best to beat a guy like Bud Crawford. And same for Bud. If Bud's age has caught up to him, I don't think that it has. But if it has, he has no shot. You have to be at your best against either of these guys.
But Errol Spence could potentially still lose to Bud Crawford and it not be because he is diminished.
Yes,
by
that's
that
true.
car
Yes.
accident.
I'm only saying if he is diminished, then it's hopeless.
Potentially.
Well, what about the whole resume conversation? Because obviously what we often do in boxing is look at the common opponents. They both fought Kell Brook. They both fought Sean Porter. I think if you look at the kind of the breadth, the depth of opponents, there are people who would say that Errol Spence has fought the better quality of opponents. But if you look at the common opponents, maybe you could say that Terence Crawford beat those common opponents better than Errol beat them. I don't know if you can make that argument. Is it just a timing thing? Because in boxing, a year or two, when you meet those opponents matters more than anything else, surely.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, what are Crawford's best wins? The Porter win, the Postal win, the Gamboa win. Those are good. Those are really good. I mean, the Gamboa win, he fought Gamboa before Gamboa was, you know, put through the ringer. It was a different Gamboa. But the 2 overlapping wins that they have, the Porter wins and then the Brook wins. To me, that Brook win that Spence had, I mean, listen to what they have been saying, him and Derek James, this entire process. We're going to break him. We're going to break him. We're going to break him. We're going to break him like a horse. That's their approach to everyone. And that is exactly what they did in hostile territory in the UK. They went to his hometown and they broke him, literally breaking his face. Crawford didn't fight the same guy like that. He had obviously he had a phenomenal finish in that fight, but he just wasn't even remotely up against the same kind of Brook. I don't count those wins the same.
I just love what Derek James said to us on Thursday. He says, we have to be consistent. He has to be perfect. And he's a very brash guy, and he's a very confident guy, but he's like, we just have to be consistent out there. He has to be perfect. He has to pitch the perfect game against us. And, I mean, look, Derek James, Trainer of the Year, reigning defending, what he is doing over there in Texas with the likes of Anthony Joshua, Ryan Garcia, Errol Spence, Martin as well. I mean, like, that is like the super team. Those are like the Avengers, right? Like, that's something we see in MMA where there's a coach with like we saw that with Trevor Whitman, right? We don't see it as much in boxing these days. It's like 1 or 2 guys. What he's doing is incredible. There is so much at stake here for both of these guys, for the 2 trainers as well, for their camps, for their teams. I mean, think about the run that he has coming up with his guys. I mean, Joshua's fighting next week. You know, like, there's a lot at stake here.
Frank
for both
Martin
of these guys.
just fought.
Yeah,
right?
Frank Martin is coming off a big fight as well. So Wow, I love everything about this. I cannot wait.
It's
and I
so
can't believe
good.
we're here. Like, I feel like we're back in, like, 1981, Montreal, Duran Leonard, Caesar's Palace back in the day. Like, this is incredible stuff right here. What a privilege this is.
It sure is. You mentioned what Errol Spence did to Kell Brook's face. The power conversation is an interesting one, or the comparison between the two, right? Because Terence Crawford, obviously a knockout artist, great finisher, has beaten by knockout every single opponent that he has faced at welterweight and the two before that at 140. Errol Spence has done that kind of damage to Kell Brook, broke the orbital bone. Fought Yordenis Ugas, also broke an orbital bone. If you're taking titles in that kind of manner, you've got heavy hands too. Do you think there is an advantage there in terms of who has the heavier hands, who is the more powerful man?
I think that, again, the more physical guy, I think, you know, punch for punch, Errol Spence is going to be the harder puncher. Again, the guy natural to this weight class. I will say this, though, because of Bud's timing and his accuracy and his shot placement, he's a super legit knockout threat. So punch to punch, it goes to Errol Spence. But you could never diminish the threat that a counter fighter with the smarts that Bud has, you could never count out his possibility of putting anybody away.
You know what we haven't done is predictions. Do we want to do any predictions? Are we making predictions?
I was hoping to escape without a...
Oh, are we? We can do that. We can just wrap up the show.
I'm good. I'll do it if you do it.
I'll do it.
All right, you go first.
I've changed my positions over and over again, but this is where I'm at today. Give me Errol Spence by decision.
Wow. I've actually flip-flopped on Crawford by decision or Crawford stoppage. I'll go the safe route, Crawford stoppage.
Wow, okay, all right.
No. Decision.
Okay, Crawford decision.
There's a couple of things that are available to you by Showtime, or Showtime are offering to you after this fight has finished. Let me run you through that. Luke, you have a show coming up, Morning Combat, instant reaction show. That's going to be available to you on the Morning Combat YouTube, so make sure you catch Luke after the fight once that has finished. There'll also be the post-fight press conference, which is available to you live on Showtime Sports YouTube, so make sure you catch both of those. We're very appreciative of you joining us for the prelims and all this chatter. Thank you so much for being with us. The main card is about to start. It is headlined by a historic fight for all the belts at 147. Errol Spence Jr. against Terence Crawford. Enjoy. You can buy it now over on showtime.com/PPV. It will be worth the money. Have a good one, everybody. Enjoy the fights. Good night.
What did you say to Errol up there?
Nothing. We about to make history.
What did you say to Terence up there?
I said he need to thank me for making this shit happen.
You made it happen.
Of course I made it happen. It ain't Crawford Spence. It's Spence Crawford.
Wow, Terence has finally arrived. Like, this is the moment that he's been talking about for, what, 5-6 years? And then Errol's energy, and then the crowd was incredible. You know it's a big event when?
When Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr., Evander Holyfield, Stephen A's in the house.
I'm not just coming to just any fight. I'm not saying it's going to be an all-out slugfest, but it's going to be a fight. Make no mistake about it. Those guys are in tremendous physical condition. What a moment!
This needed to happen now. This needed to happen in front of all these people. The two best guys in boxing are actually going to come together and unify those belts.
Both in their prime with 50-50 fight.
Errol Spence methodically breaks you down. Terence Crawford comes to take you out.
There's just something about a big boxing match, especially in Las Vegas.
The better man gonna win tomorrow.
Do you think this is a more pro-Crawford crowd or pro-Spence crowd?
You let them decide.